it is our last day, and last night at 2 o'clock in the morning, so this morning, I had the mad idea that maybe I would get up early and go for a walk by myself, see the tree without so many people around it, and it's maybe the best decision of my life. It will definitely make it a little easier to say goodbye when we fly home later. I'm going back to the hotel now. It's around the time we were supposed to be getting up, so I thought I'd try and get coffee for everyone.
I will get back to you. In the meantime, cabin crew has 40 minutes to landing.
We're back home now, and I wanted to run through the process and our experience of actually returning to the UK from America. We actually arrived home about 2 days before one change came into effect, which is that you need to lateral flow test before you leave the US. Now, I don't know how this works. I don't know who you need to report this to. I would imagine that it's the same deal that it used to be for coming and going from the EU. So basically you will do a lateral flow test, you'll take a picture of your result, send it next to your passport. Whoever you've booked it through will then send you a certificate which you use as your evidence, your proof of a negative test when you're flying. So as you go through the airport, that is your evidence. But don't quote me on that because I haven't actually done it myself. We didn't have to pre-test. We did take some lateral flow tests with us anyway, because we knew we needed to test the children at some point with them not being 100% vaccinated. Nobody asked about that at any point. We all four tested negative before we flew home. Nobody asked anything, even though unvaccinated people are supposed to test on day 3 or 5 of the trip. I filled out the Verifly app to return the same way that I had on the way there. The only difference was I didn't need a negative COVID test because it hadn't come into effect yet, and we had to do a passenger locator form. I'll leave that linked below for you. It's just from the Gov website. Really, really simple. If you've ever had to do like a tax return or anything, it's very, very similar. It's kind of just like takes you through a form, fill in lots of information. If there are, I'm not sure about whether or not you can do 2 adults on one form. Lee did his, I did mine and the kids. You can add minors on one form, but I couldn't figure out a way of doing 2 adults. I think you need to do them separately. But it's basically just information gathering. So yes, I'm vaccinated. Yes to all of this information. Yes, we've got a COVID test booked to take up to day 2. Up to, you don't have to have that test with you at the time. You just need to have the booking reference that you got when you ordered the test. And you need to give the information about where you're actually going to be isolating until you receive your negative result. It's not difficult. Time consuming, annoying that you've got to do it while you're on holiday, but not difficult. You then download that certificate again, or whatever it was, the form that you get at the very end of it. You can download an official document. You then put that onto Verifly, and all of the information there is still on the app. So pretty much exactly the same as when we went from the UK to the US. We got to the passport control. They looked at everything. They were like, yeah, no problem. I literally just swiped through the profiles. They don't look into anything. They didn't ask for any hard copies, nothing. Now, I don't know whether or not Verifly is a thing with all airlines, because I have seen some videos where people are taking hard copies. It does say to take printed copies. We didn't really have access to that. And I kind of just thought, well, If we needed a printed copy, we'd probably be able to get one at the airport. But I knew that I had them all digitally saved onto my phone, and I'd done the Verifly app, and having a little bit of experience with that app before, I didn't think we'd need them, and we didn't. But effectively, all Verifly is document storage. You've sent all of these documents into the app. Certain things are looked at, and so that's why they'll just look at your profile with a tick and they go, okay, that's been approved by this app. But otherwise, you don't really need to do it. I found it to be really, really simple, and I would definitely use it as long as it's available to us. But if it's not your thing, hard copies are going to be the same. As with entering into the US, nothing was more difficult than the last time. It was pretty straightforward. Through security, no problem. Passport control, all of it, super, super simple. No extra information needed. It was a piece of cake. One thing I'm not sure if I mentioned on the way in that British Airways did that I thought they should probably stick with moving forward was they disembarked us. Is that the right word? They got us off the plane in smaller groups. So rather than just as soon as the plane comes to a stop, everyone stands up, gets all their stuff, and it's just like a free-for-all. They called staggered rows to stand up, get your things out of the overhead locker, and it was a much more civilized process. On the way home, there was one man behind us who basically refused to follow the rules, got the stuff out. The flight attendant had to ask him to put everything back. It was an argument. It was completely ridiculous. But other than that, everyone followed the rules, which I was kind of surprised by. Because you know how it is. When the flight comes to, everyone stands up. Everyone is crazy. Everyone was pretty good, apart from this one man. I don't think it delays you getting off the plane by any means. It's just a nicer experience. Not everyone's kind of like jostling. Your row is called, same as getting onto the plane, your row is called, you get your stuff out of the overhead and you get off the plane. The last thing, and this is the most important thing to mention, we did our day 2 tests as soon as we landed. So I thought day 2 meant on day 2. It means day 2 or before. So if you're worried about this massively delaying you being able to do something when you actually return home, or like the kids going back to school or whatever else, we did our day 2 tests while we were still in the car. Everything was, sanitized and everything, but we did our day 2 tests and dropped them off at our local airport because there was a drop-off station there. We did it before 1 o'clock because it said that's the cutoff, and I think we managed to do it about 20 to 1. By about 11 o'clock last night, Lee and I both had an email saying that our tests had gone to the lab for testing. And by 8 o'clock this morning, we had both had our negative results. So absolutely no delay in anything. Obviously, we didn't leave the house once we arrived home yesterday. But today we could just go around as usual, continue with our lives. Now, I don't know whether or not we're supposed to be reporting that to somewhere. I don't know if we're supposed to submit that information. I don't know whether it's tracked because we had to put it in with our passenger locator form. I don't know. But we're not giving that information in to anyone. We've just received it back from Randox and taking that as the go-ahead to end any isolation. Also, when we were doing the Verifly, it asked for codes for Lee and I, the over 18s in our group, for the PCR test, but it didn't ask for PCR booking codes for the kids. Again, this is really, really difficult to find out online, but I don't think under 18s need to do these PCR tests. Everyone's negative, that's all fine. But I think legally, I'm not sure whether or not they're actually required to take the PCR. I have found the information about traveling right now to be pretty good for adults. But if you're traveling with children, especially 12 to 16-year-olds, that's such a grey area right now. There's so little information out there. So hopefully everything that I found out throughout this trip has been useful for some of you that are traveling with your children. If you have got any particular questions, I'm going to do a follow-up video talking a little bit more about our experience and answering some questions that I've already had on Instagram. Just a specific video that you can look to just for information rather than the vlogs. And we are going to be flying again, fingers crossed, just Lee and I, at the end of January to Vegas for our 10th wedding anniversary. So when the rules change, we will be keeping up with them, and I'll probably fill you in on some kind of updates between now and then. But overall, great trip. Really, really happy we got to go. Massively stressful. Actually being there, not a problem. But I would say that we would really think twice about booking a family trip while these restrictions are still in place. I think it's fine if it's just adults, but with so many moving parts and so little information, it's really, really tricky right now. I'm hoping that in the next 6 months, things will get a little bit of clarity because it's still so new that we're allowed to go over to the States. It was only the 8th of November, the first flight. So hopefully it's just kind of teething problems, and obviously the the new variant that's kind of thrown a spanner into the works. But yeah, I'll let you know as we go. But thanks for watching, and I will be back to regular Christmassy, boring at home vlogs tomorrow. Extra thanks to Money for snoring all the way through the end of this video.